Did you want to share or do you want me to share?
Well, the only thing I have is that this morning I heard some commotion outside. I went out to see what was going on, and some guy in a pickup in a trailer was picking up a washing machine from next door. And so before they left, I just yelled at him and says, "Are you guys collecting scrap?" And he says, "Yeah, we are." I says, "Do you want a big ass transformer?" And he says, "Yeah, we want that." So I got rid of that. It was like a 4.2 kilowatt transformer in a metal box that was, I didn't know what else to do with it. So I opened the door and they looked at it. Yeah, we could take that. And then they were talking about, hey, you can use it to make a 3-phase thing for your mill or whatever. And I said, whatever, I just want to get rid of it. And as they're walking, they said, "Oh, do you want a winch?" Because I had a brand new winch from Harbor Freight land there that I bought years ago and never did anything with it. So I gave that to them. And before they left, I said, "Do you have a card or a phone number?" And they said, "Yeah, we do." So I wrote his phone number down. So if I just start dragging crap out, and make a pile, I can just call them and have them come pick this stuff up. So that might be one way to get rid of stuff. I have a whole list of ways to get rid of stuff, but I don't know who will take what at this point and how touchy they'll be. So it's just, it's going to work out well for me to just get rid of stuff that way. So, well, we'll see what happens.
That transformer, that must have, I don't know, how many pounds did that weigh?
Right around 50 to 75.
That's a lot of copper in that, copper and steel.
It's really damn heavy, but so anyway, and it was inside of a box and had two cords coming out. And I think it's a 3-phase transformer, and I think it said 240 primary, 200 secondary or something, which just means it's about a 2-to-1 ratio. It's about a 1-to-1 ratio. I was going to try to give it to a guy that does audio stuff for a isolation transformer, but he doesn't get back to me when I write to him. So they're right there. I said, here, I quickly tried to think, what can I get rid of immediately? And so I got rid of that. Got that out of the way. That's just something I kept
they weren't going to smelt it. They were going to try to use it.
I don't know what they're going to do with it. I noticed in their trailer, they had a snowmobile on the back that they got from somebody, and there was just other random junk in their trailer they'd picked up. So I thought, I should ask him, do you have a showroom, and go over and see what they've got? So, because, first thing on the list would be, do you have any power steering motors? That would be a good thing to see what they have. And, I don't know what else, but they probably pick up various lawnmowers and stuff. So I can get lawnmower parts or complete lawnmowers probably from these guys. That'd be another thing to do. So it'd be good to know people that actually do this stuff.
Absolutely.
I used to have a woman that lived back behind me, and she'd drive around once a week and fill her pickup with stuff. And she said she could take it. I pick up a load of stuff down to the scrapyard and get like $50 for it. But I don't think she does that anymore. I don't know if she still lives there anymore. But now, since here's somebody, I got their phone number, I can say, come pick this up, and then I can start asking them about what they have, and as I ask them if they have a showroom of their junk. I don't know what they do with it, and I don't really care at this point. I just want to say, here's a pile of crap. Come pick it up and get it out of here. So,
any progress on robots for you?
No. The only thing I guess I've done, every once in a while I stop and think about, some kind of a testing procedure. And it seems like one thing I've been thinking about lately is, if you take your vehicle out, put it in the yard, point it in some arbitrary direction, and say, go straight, and then do it based on different sensors or different techniques. So first of all, you'd say, test number one, just say, point it this direction and set your steering to what you think is centered, and say, go. So with actually absolutely no corrections, just drive it to prove that no, it will not go in a straight line, and then back it up and say, okay, now do the same thing, but take the heading from your GPS and actually correct the steering based on that. So again, just drive straight, and it should be, depending how you have it adjusted, it should give you a fairly good straight line at that point. And then back it up and say, do the same thing in the IMU, and maybe break it down and say, because the IMU with the magnetic heading, so do it that way, and then back it up and then say, do it with the gyroscope on your IMU. Just a way to, number one, it'll test to see how good your sensors are, and number two, it gives you a way to say, how can I do that? It's a way to experiment, and you'll learn much more about it if you try these things just to see what it does. And then I was thinking there, I had something else to make it go straight. You know, if you have cameras or whatever on you just pick each one that will generate a heading and try to drive straight based on that. And then another thing you can do is now go back and tell it to drive in circles at a certain arc, and you can adjust it based on that. Oh, the other key thing is, as it's driving straight, save all the data from your sensors. So whether it's GPS or odometry or IMU, save all that stuff to your bag file so you can go back later and look at it and say, how straight is it actually going and how are the sensors acting on that. So it'd just be something, some afternoon, go out and run this stuff and see what it does and what kind of results you get out of it. I kept thinking, boy, if I had my lawn tractor put together, I could try that. But I've got this one that I could take out that should have all the stuff on and be ready to go. But right now I'm not doing anything with the robot stuff. So if I get around to it one of these days, I guess the point is, if I go for like 2 weeks at a time doing absolutely nothing, well, I could just be working on robots instead of doing absolutely nothing. So that's just kind of the way it's going right now. So that's all I had to mention for this time.
Well, for me, the last time we spoke, I was this happens to be my sort of task list that I'm trying to, or punch list, if you will, and I'm here at this adding an e-stop switch. And the last time we spoke, I had done that and wired things up based on what I was assuming I was going to be able to use as a pin, but basically ran into a wiring problem. And so my only bit of progress is I tested each of these pins with a separate TTGO board and this very basic, code, and found out that even though the pin diagram would suggest, there's really no difference in these pins, there is. So the pins, here that say okay worked, and the pins that say not okay didn't work. And I really couldn't see any rhyme or reason why they were. I didn't see any correlation between the ones that did work and the ones that didn't work. But now that I know which ones do work, I've got to go back and look at my pin layout and rejigger my wires to use one of the pins that does work that's available. So,
So
these
just
lines with green mean they were okay, and they're not being taken up by LoRa or some other function. So I've got a fair few options to choose from, but the one that I was originally thinking I was going to use isn't available. So
just to back up, the reason why you're stating this, because last week you were saying you're trying to get your e-stop switch, read your e-stop switch, and you could not. Your code did not see the switch out there. So anybody who's watching it right now, if you back up to last week, you'll see that he was having that problem. He had an e-stop switch connected to it, and no matter what he did, he couldn't read that switch. So now, as he says, he pulled up a separate board and he's playing with it just to identify which pins work for inputs and which ones don't.
So I guess the lesson learned is before you finalize the pins you think you're going to use based purely on I finalized my pin selection and my soldering based on this diagram, and let's just say it was 37. I don't know if it was 37 or 38. I've forgotten. I thought 37 was going to be okay. It wasn't, and I'm all soldered up to use 37, but 36 is okay. Even though you look at those two and you're like, well, what's the deal? Why the difference between those? So anyway, sort of an interesting learning about these TTGO boards.
Well, I think last week you were using pin 39 for your e-stop, and then on this diagram you've got it marked as pin 39 working. So you still might have something between the two different boards going on there, and it might be something about the software you've created or loaded on there that's affecting that.
Yeah, I don't. Could be. Going to go back to my.
So I guess the moral of that point is you've got two different boards. It's working on one. It may not necessarily work on the other one. So before you do a lot of soldering, now that it works on your external board with nothing hooked up to it, go back and try it on your actual remote before you get too carried away and assume it's going to work, because it still may not work. So it's always good to just check it before you start committing and soldering.
Yeah, I had 34 down as the e-stop and 39 down as the mode, and I was trying to test using that. So something about doing the offline test seems to me 39 was working, but this happens to be just a spreadsheet where I was trying to lay out how I was going to map things. And anyway, I think I should do, you just be careful when you start soldering, make sure everything's going to work before you get too far soldering is the moral of that story.
Or the other moral is it's not that hard to unsolder a wire and put it somewhere else. So
yeah.
But it's always good to test as you go along. So before you get completely done and say, oh, I'm trying to drive my tractor and it doesn't work, each time you put a new switch on, verify that it works and that your code can see that.
So that's my update. Well, I'll just share one more time quickly. The game plan here is get the e-stop working. I wanted to have a physical reset button in case the TTGO board locked up and was covered up, to do that via a push button that's, externally located. The RSSI at the moment was sitting at 80 or 90, which is probably fine, but wanted to play around a little bit with the power level. I'm at what's referred, it's coded at 10. It'll go up to, I think, 20, or saw some documentation said maybe it'll go to 23. So wanted to try to improve that. A little bit of 3D printing there. A little bit more 3D printing stuff, some software stuff around timers. So basically check the radio transmission at a different rate versus the dead man check versus the OLED display. So change my sort of loop timing. Yeah. So anyway, that's the next few things on my my to-do list. And being a slow programmer and only having so much time to work on it, it just takes time. But I know it needs to be done. That's where I'm at. Hey, I'm changing the subjects on you, but sort of going back to your subject on testing. Do you remember the IMU that was based on fiber optic cable, and a guy had DIY'd a directional thing using fiber optic cable? Remember that conversation, or when we were talking about that? And you had actually found somebody selling, I think, some fiber optic cable based, I'm going to say IMU. I don't know if it was a full IMU, but it was one that was based on fiber optic technology. Remember any of that?
Yeah, there's coming out of Israel, somebody was selling surplus units that they got that were fiber optic gyros that probably came out of some kind of military equipment. And it seemed like they didn't really know anything about them. It's just one of these things, they got a truckload of them, they're selling them on eBay. And then there was another one where a guy was saying, yes, as an experiment, maybe even as a like a college, like a thesis project or something, he built a fiber optic gyro. He just got a big roll of fiber optics and bolted it down to something, and then put a laser in and some kind of beam splitter and so forth. And I remember something about that. Yeah.
You don't remember though how much fiber optic cable it took, do you?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's like, like 1,000 meters or something. It's like a big roll. It's like a big roll of fiber optic cable. It's not like just one or two turns. It's a big long roll of stuff that, but the fiber optic stuff is so thin that you can, it's not really that, by the time you're done, it's not really all that big. That could be if you go to the Slack channel, just search for FOG or fiber optic or fiber, you might find something there, or go back to my indexes that I created for our channel here, and also the index for the ROS agriculture. And again, search for that kind of stuff you might be able to find, because we talked about that a lot at one point. I remember Matt was talking about it, so you probably find it back on the ROS agriculture channel, find those discussions.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what brings this up?
Oh, somebody had some fiber optic cable and they were going to get rid of it. And I was wondering how much it would take to do that DIY deal. But 1,000 meters is way beyond what they had available.
The stuff they had, was it like just patch cables to hook stuff together, or was it a roll of fiber optic cable?
I'm going to say it was 100-meter roll.
And I don't know right offhand how much you actually need on that. It could even be if you go to I was gonna say go to Wikipedia, but they may not be good enough on that. Go to say Hackaday and type in fiber optic or FOG for fiber optic gyro and see what they say. You might be able to find the one where the guy was building this and get some more information on how much you need. I think he started off, he didn't have a whole lot to start with, and he put more on. And then at one point, Matt was saying that, well, one of these commercial ones you can buy had like 1,000 meters in it, but I don't know how much you actually need to actually make that work. And just because you have the fiber optic cable doesn't solve all your problems, because you need lasers and beam splitters, and I think they use some kind of interferometry. So you take the beam splitter from the laser coming out, and then you take the return from the fiber optic, and somehow you optically merge those together, and it gives you like a like a pattern that moves back and forth like this, the interference patterns. So they needed some kind of optical sensor to read that. And I think it was just simply the point that I don't think you're actually looking at the lines. It's just as the lines move back and forth, the intensity will change. So then you get some kind of analog signal off that.
Hmm.
So you've got a lot of extra time on your hands. That's something you could experiment with, but it just seems like it'd be better to get one of these that's a surplus one that's got the whole fiber optic and all the pieces in it, and start experimenting with that. It'd be ideal if you get one that actually works, but I don't know. Even if you get one that's, supposedly a working unit, getting information on how to use it may not take you anywhere. But if you get one that's just a scrap one that's got all the pieces there, you have all the pieces and you could go play with it and see what you can make it do.
Right.
Beyond that, I don't know.
Okay, cool.
And even once you have that, that's just the gyroscope part of an IMU. You have to decide you want to try to put the magnetic field into it. And that's what seems to be the biggest problem, is the magnetic field. Trying to get one of those, that sensor that will be reliable and not be affected by driving by a car or driving through some kind of minerals in the ground or whatever. So that, I'm not sure that would completely solve your problems.
Yeah, I mean, I was just making a decision on whether to add to my junk pile or not.
And the other problem with getting, say, just a roll of fiber optic cable, a lot of times they'll put a lot of stuff around it to protect it, because the fiber optic cable is just a little thing about the size of a human hair, but then they put some kind of material around it and put a plastic coating on it. So by the time you're done, it's if you get enough of a spool, it's going to just be this huge extra weight that you don't really need. So that might be another issue on that. And quite frankly, I don't play with fiber optic cable, so I don't know, what it takes to, if you wanted to couple it at both ends, what you need for, transmitters and receivers and all this kind of stuff. But if you got a lot of extra room, you could start stockpiling this stuff.
I think I'd rather it go to your friends in Minneapolis who now have a winch and a transformer to add to their museum.
That guy did make a comment. He says he's looking at my garage, says, "Oh, I can see some interesting stuff back there right now. You get some like electronic stuff, and you can see you got a old computer monitor." Well, it's getting hard to get rid of computer monitors because they, being the lead in the CRT, they want to charge you to take anything. So I don't know if this guy actually has an interest in that stuff or whatever. But if I talk to him again, I can find out what he wants and what he doesn't want.
Sounds good. Well, that's all I got. I think you can turn off recording.
Let's see. Do I have anything else? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I see Ardusimple just put out a email saying they're having a back to school sale or something.
I saw that.
So if anybody's interested in that kind of stuff, you could check it out. But something I found annoying was I went there to say, okay, what are they selling? Like the boards that I have is the original. It's probably called the Ardusimple 2B or something like that. And it's the one that's in the shape of an Arduino Uno. And when I bought the first one on Kickstarter, and I don't remember what I paid for it, but it's the first version they made. So it was either version 1.0 or 1.1. And then I later bought a second one when I was trying to do this heading thing. And that one, it was one number higher. So it was either a 1.1 or a 1.2. But the problem was the first board doesn't seem to work as well as the second board. So I was just looking to see what they're selling now, and nowhere could I find that they would tell me what the version of the boards are they're selling. But since I don't want to lay out any money, I didn't really pursue it any further than that. So that's just something else that just popped up here recently that I saw. And beyond that, I can't think of anything else. Yeah, I see various things on YouTube, and I did notice on YouTube that we are getting more views both on our channel and on my channel, the views are going up. So one of these days we might figure out some combination to attract people to it. And I kept wondering, is it a valid thing to just publish what our Slack channel is? You know, I don't want to get a bunch of riffraff on there that, you know, I certainly don't want scammers to sign up for it. And I don't even know how the Slack channel works. Can you just post the name of the Slack channel, and when they try to get on, it says, oh, you have to be registered, so then they have to send a request to somebody? Is that how it works? Or if you
I
just
don't know for certain.
or possibly just publish the name of it and anybody can get in? And I've always hesitated to do that. So out on the ROS Agriculture channel, when somebody said, what happened to the group? And I said, well, we started the new group, and if you want an invite to the new channel, send me an email. And I just randomly, you know, somebody will send me an email saying, I would like an invite to that. And at least there I know that they came from ROS Discourse. So they're probably not scammers, but I don't know if you just open it up to everybody, you know, out on the YouTube channel under the info tab, or whatever, I think it's called info. No, the about tab. You know, I could put a thing right there saying, well, here's the, I could say, here is the channel. And I don't know what would happen if somebody just clicks on, you know, says, goes to Slack and say, go to the Tractor Automation channel. I don't know if it'll say it doesn't exist, or it says you have to be authorized. So I don't know if that'll start a request process doing that. Or I could put my email out there. And even though, you know, I said several weeks ago, I said, well, somebody put a comment on one of my videos, said, oh, I'd like to talk to you. Can you send me your contact information or something like that? And I just responded saying, well, no, I don't see a way to do that. But if you want to post your email on YouTube, then I'll get back to you. And I never heard back from him. So I assume that was just somebody trying to scam me somehow, or he just wasn't ambitious enough to ask his question. So there's one other one that a guy subscribed to my channel. I went and looked, and again, he didn't have any videos, and I looked through his list, and most of the stuff had nothing to do with robotics or mechanics or anything, but there were a couple more on there. So you really, I guess you really can't tell by just looking at their page to find out, you know, determine whether they're scammers or not. But he subscribed to my channel, and I haven't heard anything from anybody. So that's the way it goes. It's the wonderful world of YouTube and having no idea how any of this stuff works. And there's always people out there trying to take advantage of you on any platform, no matter what it is. So it's just a song and dance trying to get this stuff figured out.
You're still recording, by the way.
Yes, I know. Oh, and the other thing was, you know, I said several weeks ago, maybe up to a month ago, I said, oh, it looks like Slack is going to throw out all of our old stuff and only be, the messages only be valid for like 30 days or 90 days. And I was able to export the stuff, but I can't get the threads. And I looked at the various GitHub projects that are trying to do that for you. And I can't get them to run on my Linux machine. Possibly if I just grab my other Linux laptop and try to load it on that, I can get it to work. And then I thought, well, I'll go to Windows and try it. So I went to Windows, and I still can't. I still run up against the fact that anybody that's trying to go out to Slack and say, export this data, you have to have that, what do you call it, a token that gives you permissions to do a lot of stuff. And some people are saying, well, you can't get a token anymore. And other people saying, oh, you can go to your web browser. So you go to Slack and then open up what do you call it, the console on your browser, and go to the networks, and then refresh the page, and there should be an entry called, I can't remember what they called it, but they said there'll be an entry called that, and it'll have a token inside of there. So the fact that you can get into Slack and use it, that apparently there's a transparent token that you don't know about, that somehow you can extract that. But I go down the path, and I cannot find, you know, I can find the steps that he says, but I can't find this actual token that's in there. So I can't get it that way. So apparently anything that's going to go out to Slack and export the data that way, I don't think I can do that anyway, because I don't know how to get this token. And then there's another one that says it will take the data that was already exported and somehow convert that. And if I can get that to work, that would be better than what we have now. And it's really down to the point where I spent on the Windows machine. I tried various other things. I still can't get it to work. So I asked on the Homebrew Robotics meeting on Tuesday night, I asked them if anybody there had run into that. And they all said, well, we never heard that Slack is going to do that to people. And I still don't know the answer to that, because I noticed I was on my Windows laptop, which had the Slack application loaded, and I was on the Twin City Robotics Slack group, and that's where it popped up and said, oh, we're going to throw all your old data away. You might want to do something about it. And if I go to I don't remember if it did that on our lawn tractor automation channel on the Windows, but on my Linux laptop, where I just run it from a browser, it has never told me that there. So I'm not even sure exactly what's happening there. If that's, there was just some combination that they decided this one channel, it's not going to happen, or what. Because our Slack is a completely free one, isn't it? You didn't subscribe to anything there?
I don't. Yes, it's a free version.
Okay, so there's really no difference between our channel and the Twin City Robotics channel, but one of them was telling me that they're going to do this, and the other one wasn't. And then if I go to Linux, it's never told me that. So maybe I should just spend some time today and try to track that down and see, is that really going to happen, or were they just making this up? Because they were saying September 1st is when this is going to take place. And if anybody wants any of the pictures or the old files that were posted, this would be good time to go get that if they really wanted to do that. Bob seems real interested in getting all the old data. Maybe he should go through and try to extract all the files and save them one at a time. But otherwise, I don't know if I'll get the ambition to do that or not. I really wanted to get to the point where I could just say, export the whole thing and convert it into a readable portion, without a whole lot of work. I sent an email to Doug, because Doug took the stuff from ROS Agriculture and somehow converted it. And then that got posted out on the Google groups, Google channel, or whatever that's called, Google Drive, I think it's what it is. So the stuff is there, but you don't have access to any thread that was on a message. So the message will say, oh, here's my new vehicle. And then down below it says, oh, there's a thread with 26 replies, but there's no way to get that data back. And I'm thinking that you have to get it, as you export it. I think you have to get that data. And that's what I was trying to do. And I don't know how much more effort I'm going to put into it. I've got the export back to whenever this channel was started. So it has links to the files, which would be pictures. And if you put code, any attachment you put on, those are out in the file section. But any of the threads, I don't know how to get that. So yeah, I guess it's probably better than nothing, but it's not ideal just because of the way Slack has put this whole thing together. So just the point that I looked at it again, and so the second time around, I still didn't come up with an answer, and I don't know how well it's going to work. It just seems like if they're really going to do this, there'd be enough people out there saying, oh, well, enough people asking how to fix it or complaining about it, that it seems like it gets closer to the deadline. Somebody could say, oh, we'll just do this and that'll take care of your problems. But I haven't seen that yet. So I may or may not try to track down whether they're really going to do this or not. And other than that, I probably won't get too far with it. So that's all I got to say about that.
It's interesting that Twin City Robotics hadn't heard any of that.
Well, it pops up on their page, when it pops up on my screen when I go to that group, but I don't know. And that's another one where that's dwindled down to there's only 2 or 3 people that even look at it, I think. So I don't think they really care either. So it's just one of those things. But I just think there's enough people in the world using Slack that somebody out in the world on blogs or wherever would say, oh, gee, they're going to do this. How do we? Because there's lots of people just saying, how do I back it up? Period. They're not saying that this stuff's going to disappear. But so I don't know.
You got to believe somebody has written that code to take the high level and the chats. It's just an issue of sharing it.
Well, there are, as I say, I found like 3 different projects where people are working on how to do that. But the ones that go out to Slack to export it, then they have to have that token. and I don't know how to get around that. So that seems to be a problem. And it could be if you become a Slack developer, because there's a lot of information on the Slack website itself saying, how do you export the data? How do you do anything with this data? And they're saying, oh, you do an API call and you can go out and you can collect those threads. But it seems like if you can do an API call, you probably have to be a registered developer or something to do this. And you have to have these tokens. I don't know how you get the tokens. So there's probably a whole path you could go down there if you've got a lot of ambition, but I just get the point. I don't have enough ambition to worry about that. And all the stuff we got now, it's getting to the point where, nobody's using our Slack channel anyway, other than posting I post the weekly meeting info saying, here's what we did. And then it's going to get to the point with whether it's 30 days or 90 days, then, that's all farther those are going to go back. And that's why the index that I put on there, should, every time it shows up. So, 1 to 3 months worth of stuff will say, here's what we did on this meeting, here's the YouTube channel, and here's, it'll take you back to, that'll get you back to the index. So we're not really losing a whole lot there.
I am hopeful once we start posting videos of working devices running a mission, the interest level will pick up significantly.
Possibly, yeah.
That's just me postulating. But all that activity is not really, my goal is to run an AB line, not to generate views. I have cows and grass and manure to pick up.
Yep. So are we done?
We can stop recording.